So many listeners write into me and they ask, Mr. Weiler, as the oldest living radio host in America, do you sometimes look back at the golden age of radio as a real high point in your career, now that your show is getting pounded in the ratings by Ira Glass and Wait, I Don't Want to Know, and Terry Gross and all the young people coming up in the business? Do you ever wish you were back there in your halcyon days? I'll bet you love to sit around after your show, which, by the way, I used to listen to when I was a child, sit around and regale your staff with stories about your salad days in broadcasting, signed Chris Thiele. Yes, Chris, I do have fond memories, especially when I come out to Cleveland, which is where Vince Giordano and I started out on radio. It was many years ago. We were all living at the YMCA, and the Nighthawks actually were newsboys who hawked the paper, the Plain Dealer, and Vince gave them music lessons when he was sentenced to do 500 hours of community service for stealing a box full of 78s of Adrian Rollini, the Bruce Springsteen of the bass saxophone. But that's a story for another time. Vince and his band, they spent every day up in the attic, right up above this stage where our studios were, studios of WLT, guys sitting around, playing cribbage, reading the funny papers, and then 10 seconds before the on-air light went on, they were right there with the cue, right there.
And now, from the sunny kitchen of Aunt Maggie and her selfish daughter Megan, we bring you The Ravenous Heart. As we join the Fairfields, Aunt Maggie is saying,
"Oh, look at those fleecy white clouds scudding like graceful ghosts across the Cleveland skyline as the bustling crowds head towards Playhouse Square in search of entertainment to relieve the emotional stress of another work week."
You talk funny, you know that?
Oh.
Talk like a normal person, you old bat.
And yet, when we seek distraction in the works of art, what in the end do we find but ourselves over and over and over again?
Hey, borrow me $10, Ma. I want to go downtown and get into trouble.
Oh, mercy's sakes, not with that Italian boy.
Yes, of course, with that Italian boy.
Oh, but he's from Rocky Fort Point.
Who gives a rip? I'm out of here.
Oh.
Vince Giordano, whose real name, by the way, is Vern Jorgensen, but he changed it because otherwise he'd have to play polkas, wouldn't be able to play jazz. Vince Giordano and his Nighthawks were everywhere in radio back then. Usually, they were playing schlock most of the time, but every so often they got to play the music that they truly loved.
we now bring you a brief musical interlude with Vince Giordano and his Nighthawks. That concludes this musical interlude. We now return you to our normal schedule of broadcasting.
All day the band sat up there in the studio. They were calling their bookies, they were lining up dates with female fans, they were reading unsavory novels and, making anonymous phone calls to complete strangers. And yet, no matter what they were doing, how busy they were never late when Vince cued them to play the next theme song.
time once again for Timmy of the Jungle, brought to you by Brunswick Brand Baked Beans. When you feel tight and clogged up too, Brunswick Baked Beans go right through. And now, today's story. Timmy and his mom had left their home in Cleveland to return a casserole dish to Grandma, but they got lost in the dark.
Gee, Grandma lives in Cuyahoga Falls, Mama. I think this is the Cayman Islands or the jungles of Colombia.
Oh, but we have to keep going, Timmy. We have to return things that we borrow. Uh-oh. A jaguar. And not the kind with a hood ornament. Oh, you better run for it, Timmy. I'll fight him off with this tree branch. Uh-oh. It's not a tree branch. Oh.
Scaring people was one thing that radio did really, really well. Movies, they're just not very scary unless they get dark, unless they go to black, unless they become like radio. Visuals get in the way of fear, but radio is perfect.
And now, Jensen's medicated gel. Jensen's cures sores from smallpox and gangrene, and it leaves you smelling fresh and clean. Brings you Radio Story Time with Uncle Buddy.
Hello, children. Time for another story here on Story Time. And today, I think I'll tell you a story about quicksand.
Oh no, Uncle Buddy, not quicksand.
No, buddy, that's too scary for our children.
I'm tired of you, Maud. Stick this in your mouth. Quicksand is all around us, children. You can walk down the street and never notice, and then suddenly...
That was radio back in the golden age, and